feels like home to me.
And hello, Chicago. You are listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC LP 98.3 FM on the dial in Chicago or anywhere in the world, or on our website, which is WGHCradio.org. I'm your host, Bob Kiser. My preferred pronouns are he, him, his. But as my good friend Kylan says, any that are used respectfully are all right with me. It is so good to be here. I've been off probably about 2 weeks, I think. And it's always a little nerve-wracking getting behind the microphone, and it's very exciting because I love these conversations that we have on the show. So if you're tuning in for the second time, fifth time, 100th time, welcome back. We're so glad you're here. And if this is your first time, wow, well, welcome to the show. As I said, this is Perfect Detours, and each week we explore how we turn those perfectly imperfect moments in our lives into a catalyst towards living a life beyond our wildest dreams. The question becomes, how would your life be different if you saw everything as pointing you towards becoming the perfect you, that the universe was actually conspiring for you? And I see it's about changing seeing how we see ourselves. Instead of seeing ourselves as victim of the world, that we acknowledge that we are survivors and actually heroes of the stories of our lives. And some of you may be asking, why the heck is he doing this show? Well, honestly, I think too many good-hearted souls, they lose their way and they give up. And I want this show to be a vehicle for all of us to share with each other how we personally have turned those imperfect experiences in our lives into, wait for it, perfect detours. Don't you love how I just got the title of the show in my intro? I think that's really cool, as I'm talking to my guest, who I'll introduce in a second. But again, welcome. So happy Juneteenth. I feel that it's so special that this is like the first one, and kind of devastated that this is just the first one. And I want to celebrate. I think we could do couple things today, but I want to celebrate that we're actually celebrating this day. And I think everyone knows, but for those of you that may not know, Juneteenth, which is June 19th, it marks the day when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people were free. And I'm just excited to be able to celebrate today. I think we have a lot more work to be done, but today is a celebration. So yay for that. And also tomorrow is Father's Day. So for all of you fathers out there, happy Father's Day. I want to say happy Father's Day to my own dad, George Kiser. I was supposed to see him yesterday, and things just didn't work out. So hopefully I'll see him in the next week or two. But I'm grateful, and as most of you know, I am adopted. So I always say that he is the best father a kid could choose, and that is the truth. I've learned so much from him. And if I could be 1/10 of the man that he is, I know that I will be a success. So happy Father's Day, George Kiser, and everybody else. And those of you who listen to the show know that I want this to be a conversation between us. I don't just want myself and my guests to be talking at you, but rather for us to be in dialogue. So we always welcome phone calls. The phone number here is 773-942-7167. Again, 773-942-7167. Feel free to call in. If anything that we are talking about inspires you, definitely call in. We want to hear from you. There are 3 ways to be listening to the show, just to make sure everyone knows, is that you can be listening on the radio dial, which is 98.3 FM. You can also be listening on the web, as we said, which is WGHCradio.org on the Listen Live tab, and also on Facebook. So on my Facebook profile, I have it always live, and people watching, hello Facebook Live. And if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat. Please know I only see like the first one that comes up, so if there's a couple, then you probably won't, I won't see it, so feel free to repeat the question. So and with that said, let's talk a little bit about the show today. I am so excited. So I have a good friend of mine on, Diane Smutny, who is a photographer. And each week, I've shared with listeners before, sorry, as I just keep hitting the microphone. I'm sure everyone loves that. But each week, I do a pre-brief with my guest about what is it that they want to talk about? What is the perfect detour in their life? And this week, Diane and I started talking about a subject that I find fascinating, and that subject is magic, and the idea of how magic works in our lives. So as a coach, I watch people who work really hard getting things down in place, and then all of a sudden the quote-unquote magic happens. All of a sudden they start to get lucky with things. And I love the idea of magic. I think that there are some pieces that activate that quote-unquote magic, though. And that's what I'm really interested to talk about today. I love when people say, oh, that person just got lucky. Could be, but usually there's a lot of work that goes into that luck. I love that when people say, someone's an overnight sensation, when you hear them interviewed, like say a movie star, the movie star is like, yeah, it took me 10 years to be an overnight sensation. So I think a lot of preparation goes into that. And as Seneca, the Roman philosopher, said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And I definitely agree with that. And we'll hear more from Diane about what her thoughts on this and also how it's worked in her life. I'm interested to know how it's worked in your life. How is luck, quote unquote, luck played out? Is it something that you find has just happened? Or has it happened after a lot of hard work? I would love to hear both sides call in and describe their experiences. I think for me that I would say I've been very lucky in my life. That I've had many opportunities, and I think the point of opportunities are when we say yes to them. And if we don't say yes to the opportunities, then it's a little hard for opportunities to take effect or to have a good effect in our lives. So I think that is something for us to think about. We've talked about in the show before, is this idea of when to say yes and when to say no to opportunities or to whatever is presented to us. I know for me that there are also times when I need to say no to things, that I can say yes to too many things, and that actually, when I say yes to a lot, then it doesn't leave space for those moments, those opportunities, those things in my life that could provide growth for me. One of the ways that people self-sabotage is by being truly too busy. And I think I can definitely relate to that. Because I think that when I start getting nervous with things, I think if I just do more, then everything will be better, or I'll have better results. And sometimes it's not necessarily about the amount of work we do, but about the specific work that we do, and quantity over quality. So all of those things I think are going to fit into the conversation today. Again, the phone number here is 773-942-7167. Call in, give us your thoughts. I want to take a short break, and then I'm going to bring my guest on again, Diane Smutny. So I cannot wait for this conversation. I think everyone is going to really enjoy it, and at least I know I will, and it's my radio show, so I'm glad I'll enjoy it. Anyway, so you are listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Just a reminder to visit our website at WGHCradio.org, where you can listen live, make donations, sign up for our emails, and more. So we will be right back. This is Bob Kiser. You're listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Please make a donation on the front page of our website, WGHCradio.org.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
This is Skip Sams. You are listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Change happens here. We are a low-power station, and it's our mission to empower those with small voices to be heard loudly. If you are listening and looking for encouragement in the Chicago North Side communities, please sign up for our email list on our website at WGHCradio.org.
At
Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
You are listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM, Chicago. Change happens here.
And welcome back, everybody. This is Bob Kiser on Perfect Detours. I have a special guest in the studio today. So her name is Diane Smutny. She is a photographer in Chicago. And I met Diane. I was doing for, I think everyone knows I work for UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago. And she was a photographer. And she came in to take some photographs for us. And it was such a great experience just talking with her, and she shared a little bit about how she got into photography and kind of her passion for it. And fast forward, as I was thinking about guests for this show, I was like, wow, I remember that conversation. And so I wanted to have her on the show. So welcome, Diane.
Hi there. Thanks for having me today. It's exciting to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So Diane, the thing I remember is the passion in which you talked about photography, and that it has been a part of your life since you were very, very young. So tell us a little bit about your journey with photography.
Right. My uncle was actually a darkroom salesman, and he traveled all over the country. He was gone a lot, but whenever he was in town, he would call me and say, hey, Di, you want to get together? We would take pictures. He had a darkroom. And, when he was gone, I'd be taking pictures on my own. He'd come back. We'd take a look at them, that kind of thing. So photography's always been around. I think he was the first one to give me my first camera. It was a Mickey Mouse camera. I think I was 4.
Oh, wow.
I still have it. It's super fun.
Do you remember like the first things you took photos of?
I have 2 little sisters, and I am the typical big sister. I would dress them up and pose them, and they were so happy that their big sister wanted to play with them that they would do anything I told them to.
Oh. So they're your first models.
They were my first models. Yeah,
Love
definitely.
it.
So, photography is always something that I've done. And oddly enough, I never, ever considered it as a career. My father was a CPA. My mother was a legal secretary. And for me, success was getting a job and having an office, with your nameplate on the door.
Yeah.
That was really, in my mind, what we were supposed to do as grown-ups. So art school or being a photographer, those things never entered my mind at all. I went to college for advertising. That was sort of my little way of, as best I could, maybe being around photography, but still being in a business, in an office environment, whatever, and still being creative. But it didn't, by the time I finished college, I was going to job interviews, honestly, hoping and praying that I didn't get the job.
You said that during our pre-brief. I was laughing about that.
Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, all these kids on campus, like, did you get that interview and how did it go? And I wasn't tanking the interviews, but I was just crossing my fingers that they didn't call me back.
Oh, wow.
Which is terrible. And then oddly enough, I had worked in camera stores through high school and all through college. So I don't want to say in the business at all, because I was just the counter kid kind of thing. Wow. But I got this opportunity to run a lab out of college. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything really about processing. I know a little bit about darkroom, but color processing and machinery and, volume stuff, like I had no clue. And they said, you're perfect for it. You can learn. It's not that hard.
you know nothing. You're perfect for it.
I know. But truly, I had the background to do it, and they trained me, and it was fine. And I really thought that I would do that for 2 or 3 years and then go to grad school, right? And then we could sort of move on with, I thought something would hit me.
Sure.
And I loved this lab work, and in the end, I did it for 10 or 12 years. But honestly, around the 8-year mark, I was getting a little itchy, because we had professional photographers who were bringing me their work.
Right.
And I was still, I would take my friends' kids and photograph them. I was always in my spare time taking pictures. And I would see the professionals work, and certainly not everything I did, but some things I did, I would be like, well, my stuff's not that bad.
Right.
Maybe I could do this. And honest to Pete, I had no idea how to get there. Not at all. No idea.
So I want to go back one step. So this is
Sure.
so interesting to me. So what was it inside you that was different when you were around photography versus when you were around advertising? Because you seem to be very clear that one inspired you and one didn't. So how? Because I think a lot of us have the same ideas that success is 9-to-5 job, making the coins,
Right.
having the office,
Right.
and a lot of clients come to me with the same thoughts. So how did you know? What was inside you that told you this isn't right, but being around photography is?
For me, I think with photography, it's the end result. I can have an idea in my head, whether it's an assignment that was given to me or something that I'm doing on my own, and
Right.
I can make that happen.
Wow.
And when you're in advertising, and of course it goes to the big budgets that they have, you have to justify your spending. So you do all this research, and this is our target market, and this is, we're going to do these ad buys, and we're going to do this and that. And in the end, you see the really cool commercial,
Right.
but the hoops you have to jump through to justify that creative on the back end,
Yeah.
it just kind of seemed like nonsense to me. No offense to anyone that's in the advertising business.
Disclaimer. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I really, truly think also that if I did tough it out and get an ad job, all I would have done is had to be on my first photo set
Right.
as the ad representative, and I think I would have quit my job, jumped ship,
Yeah.
and opened a studio or something.
But that's great you knew before. I think some of us, it takes us doing our first job or whatever to know. So
Well, I don't know that I knew I could do it, but I knew I wanted to do it.
Right.
Like it just looked like the most fun.
Right. And as we were talking as we've talked, Diane, you've mentioned that even when it's not around your professional life, you still take photos.
Yes.
Like you live and breathe photography.
You can't help it, and I think the more you get into it, when you see light that's a certain way, you have to capture it because it's fleeting.
Well, I will say I don't have to capture it because I don't see it. So, but yes, for you.
And sometimes
that's
I
awesome.
see it, and then I think, oh my God, if I put this over there, I have to come back here another day at this time when the sun is here, and if I had a person there and they were this way and they were wearing that,
Yeah.
that's magic.
That's magic, which we're going to get to in a second. I can't wait. It's so funny working with people. People come to me going, I just don't know what I want to do with my life. And then I'll say, so what do you do in your spare time? And an example for me was when I was a kid, I used to in school, I would draw sets, like set design of shows. And I would just make them up, and I couldn't help myself. And if my copious free time, I want to go back to school and do set design. But it's those things that we are like, oh, we could never make a living at that, or that's not a profession. That's just quote unquote fun.
Right.
But sometimes in those is that magic, or where we can create the magic. So yeah.
I think if you stick with it long enough, because no matter what my job was, no one was going to take a camera out of my hands.
See, and that's important. Yeah.
So. If you keep at it and you stick with it, it's amazing the things, and I guess I never thought about it until this interview, but over the course of my life, a lot of things have fallen my way because I had a camera in my hands.
Interesting. Tell us, what do you mean? Tell us more.
It's just being there. So for instance, when I quit the lab job,
right.
And for me, that was my jumping off the cliff moment, right? And believe it or not, that was April of 2001. And we all remember what happened in September of 2001.
Right.
Great time to start a business from scratch, right?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, exactly. And, I had saved some money, planning not to make much money, but I really didn't plan on making zero money. And at that point, I could have said, oh, well, terrible timing, and gone out and got a job of some sort.
Sure.
But I wasn't going to give this up You know, the day I jumped off the cliff, I gave myself 2 years, and 9/11 or no 9/11, I was going to give it 2 years. And like I said, you couldn't get a job to save your life, especially someone without a reputation and a stable of clients already. So I started looking up other photographers. You know, websites were, you know, a lot of people had them by 2001, thank goodness.
Right.
And I just started calling photographers and saying, do you need an assistant? Can I help you? You know, and believe it or not, that turned into a great training period for me because I had done a lot of portrait work on my own. I also love to photograph animals. I love photographing, you know, people's pets, dogs and cats, that kind of thing too. That's super fun for me. There's not a lot of money in that. At least for me, it hasn't been, but I love doing it. And I lost my train of thought for a second. So by working with these other photographers, I was exposed to architectural photography, and I was exposed to separate and apart from architectural is interiors. So working for interior designers, I worked for this woman that shot spreads for Better Homes and Gardens and Country Living magazine, which is very different from architectural photography.
How?
Architectural shooters, a lot of times they shoot exteriors, but when they shoot interiors, they're using what's called a 4x5 camera. So it's those old-fashioned camera on the tripod, and you stick your head under the cloth.
Yes.
Okay, and what that allows you to do is straighten all the lines in the building. Because, you know, if you're too close and, you know, then the building's not straight, that kind of thing. And you're usually doing very large spaces.
True. Okay. That makes sense.
When you're doing interiors and you're in someone's living room or in someone's kitchen, you're actually working with a stylist who's making sure that the kitchen faucet is tipped this way so it doesn't intersect with the flowers that go there. They redo the people's bookshelves so that the bookshelves look, because magazines look perfect, right?
Right.
That's what this woman did. And it was just amazing to be on a full day shoot with these people. I mean, you worked your tail off.
Sure.
And they were long days. But it was, I mean, it wasn't even work, seriously. Like, I would have done it for free. They paid me, which was lovely, but I would have done that every day for free.
I think,
it was just fun.
What is the quote that if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life?
It turns out it is work, but
you still love it.
It's the best work.
Good.
It's the best work. So
good. So I keep hearing in your story that you had a passion for it. You had luck in the business, but then you also worked really hard. So tell me, and we started talking about this, or at least I introed at the beginning of the show, about magic. And we talked about magic when we did our pre-brief, I think, on Thursday. So how has magic played into your career? And tell us a little bit about what magic is to you.
You know, magic is something, if you're, especially with photography, I can speak to that for myself. I think it's the thing that keeps you coming back to it. So for instance, very early, before I was a professional, I had gotten at college, a friend of mine had moved to Florida, to Key Largo. She was in the restaurant business. She worked all day. She gave me the keys to her car and she said, go, you know, do whatever you want, drive around, you know, maybe, you know, I'll see you later kind of thing. So I drove. I had a map. These were the days before everyone had cell phones. So I literally had a map.
Yes.
And I saw off the side of the highway that there was a beach. So I turned and it was the most beautiful beach and it was empty. I couldn't figure out why. So beautiful water, beautiful white sand. They had these cute little yellow lifeguard chairs. No lifeguards there because there was no one on the beach. Cute little Art Deco hotels. And really just senior citizens. I don't know if they lived in these hotels or if they were on vacation, but, you know, they're in the shade under the umbrella in front of the hotel. And I had this whole beach to myself. And, of course, I had my camera with me.
Of course.
And as the sun went down, as you know, this was the Miami area, so the sun isn't setting over the water, the sun sets behind you. And what happens when the sun sets behind you is the opposite sky turns all kinds of crazy colors, pink and purple, and weird shades of blue, and it's all kind of mixed together. And I was just shooting, and then these white birds came. So I had my yellow lifeguard chair and my white birds and my beautiful water and my purple sky and my white sand. And I'm like, oh my God, this is magic. I have to get it. And that was one of the first pictures where everything came together.
Wow.
And it was just all there. So it's like one of the happiest days of my life when I think back to it. And I was by myself, literally.
Right.
But it was the most fun, and it was everything coming together. And I just knew that, like, this is where I wanted to be. And this is what I want to do.
I love that story.
And side story, it turned out to be South Beach.
You were telling me that.
So there were days when South Beach was empty and full of retired people.
Yes.
So it's very different now. And they did replace those cute yellow lifeguard chairs with big houses. They're like lifeguard houses now. It's very different. But I still have that negative.
I love that.
Yeah. And it was just wonderful. So, sort of fast forward through my photography career, I'm now sometimes on a job in a position where, again, things just come together and it's going to be a picture that's magic. So I guess I'm to the point now where I anticipate these things.
Yes.
Or sometimes you can even plan for them. If a client's telling me they want this or that, I know if we go at 6 o'clock to this place in this way, it's going to be magic.
So your expertise of what you're doing, but then also just kind of an intuitive hit of like, I need to be prepared for this.
Yes. And you have to be ready for it. Preparation, ready for it. And it also sounds like during that moment that, and I find joy in these moments where there's like these aha discoveries, or you're like, oh, wow, you're not expecting things and it does come together. I love it when you're planning things and they do come together, but those moments of discovery are just amazing. I think in creativity, from a theater background and in my life, it's those unexpected moments. You're like, oh, wow. So you put all the pieces there, but then all of a sudden it comes together and you're like, oh, wow, that little extra magic or help from the universe or whatever it is. Yeah. And do you ever have that mid-show? Like, even if it's a show that you've rehearsed completely, where just there's one night that something happens?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting when you're doing a long-running show, it is when things don't go right that those moments happen. They can happen other times, but I think you get in a rut or you get used to what's expected. But then something happens and all of a sudden you're brought into the present moment. And in acting, they always talk about being in the moment, being present. And when you are, that's when you can have those discoveries. Many times as an actor, I would be pre-planning whatever I was going to do because I want validation. I don't want it to mess up. But I think in order for that creativity to be fruitful, there's a certain amount of risk. You have to just go in and say, okay. And I think even with your photographs, like you could go anywhere in Florida. You're like, okay, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to wait for this picture. While there's some times where I'm like, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to go over here because I want something to happen. And anyway, but I think in theater, it's those, as you get more comfortable with the unexpected, you're comfortable with waiting for it.
Right.
Would you say? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you do have to be ready for it.
Yeah. Yes, and the patience and timing is everything.
Right.
But that's so awesome. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back to talk to our guest, Diane Smutny. We'll be talking more about magic and also the power of saying yes. So you are listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Just a reminder to visit our website, which is wghcradio.org, where you can listen live, make donations, sign up for our emails, and more. And by the way, I just want to thank all the listeners who donated for our computer. We got the donations, we got the computer, and Skip, our station manager, was telling me that this show was a huge sponsor of all of that. So thank you so much for all of the listeners who put some money towards us. So we'll be right back with Diane Smutny. This is Bob Kiser. You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM Chicago. Listen to our live stream at WGHCradio.org and click on the Listen Live tab, WGHCradio.org.
With a My Social Security account, you can request a replacement Social Security card, estimate your benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
This is Skip Sams. You are listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Change happens here. We are a low-power station, and it's our mission to empower those with small voices to be heard loudly. If you are listening and looking for encouragement in the Chicago North Side communities, please sign up for our email list on our website at WGHCradio.org.
And we are back with Perfect Detours with your host, Bob Kiser. I am with Diane Smutny of DMS Photography, and we are talking about magic, saying yes, and just all those special times in our life when things line up. So, Diane, I kind of just gave a little preview of what I want to talk about, but during our pre-brief, you were mentioning about how the moments that you said yes to life led to these amazing opportunities. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. I mentioned earlier that when 9/11 hit, I turned to doing a lot of assisting work because I didn't have an established client base yet. And not only did I learn a lot, technique-wise and about the business and otherwise from these wonderful photographers, but they would then in turn perhaps throw me jobs if they were double booked, or if it was a job that was perhaps, say, too small for them, and they knew that I could handle it, they would throw it to me. I'd do a great job, hopefully, most of the time. And I could take those photos back to them, and we could kind of talk through things and, what you did well, how you could do things better, that kind of thing. And that actually helped me build my client base. Yes. And it also gave me a great network of friends. So, I've heard stories from professional photographers who, while I started my business during film, it really didn't take off until that switch to digital happened somewhere between 2003 and 2006 in a major way in the photography industry. So, my first professional job was probably in the late 90s, and that was all film, but I was by no means supporting myself from photography. I was still at the lab at that point. And if you talk to photographers from the film days, it was very proprietary. We didn't share secrets. We didn't share techniques. Everybody kind of kept to themselves. It sounds like it was a very lonely time, but I think people were afraid of losing their clients or people stealing their clients or who knows what.
Sure.
And when it came to digital really shook up the industry. The exposure was different. Attention to color was different. Everything was very different. And a lot of those longtime film shooters did not make that transition to digital. Lucky for me, I had that lab job for 12 years because it turns out Photoshop is a computer version of working in a lab.
Wow, who knew?
So I took to Photoshop very well because I already knew so many of the concepts of it. I just had to learn where the buttons were and, how all the tools worked in there. So that was terrific. And again, all these friends I made along the way, we were all in the same boat together.
Right.
Trying to figure out this digital thing. And it's turned to a point now where, if Photoshop comes out with a new version, or there's some new software that comes out, or a new computer comes out, or they change the operating system, or there's new monitors being made, it's always new stuff. There's always someone in my network that has tried it, or read about it, or been studying it. There was one time just a few years ago where, on a dime, my monitor went out.
Huh.
It was just gone. And I hadn't been in the market for a new monitor. I hadn't been reading up on monitors. And I'm busy. I needed one. I needed to call my place and have one tomorrow kind of thing. And I just put it out to my little network, and one of the guys got back to me. He said, oh, yeah, I just did all the research. I just bought one. This is the one you need. Wow. And I'm like, great. And I got it, and I have it overnighted, and I put it in, and I'm up and running again.
Isn't that interesting? I think that many people could probably relate to this fear of scarcity and this fear of that I can't give away whatever I have because then other people are going to take it or it's going to make me less successful. And I find that people who are really good at what they do actually are pretty okay with sharing, a certain amount, So I guess I need to ask, I'm assuming, but do you think that your, I'll say tribe, sharing experience and quote unquote secrets, has that hurt anybody? Do you feel like that you've been lacking because of it?
That hasn't hurt anybody.
Interesting.
It's helped all of us.
Right?
Tremendously. And even to the point now where if I need 2 or 3 or even 4 photographers on a job, I have people that I can call.
She has people.
Yeah, I have people. And, I'm not at the community college, trying to get the next person and training them up. I might do that for an assistant, but if I need a job that needs 4 real shooters, I can pull 4 real shooters.
That is so
with a phone
great.
Call. And, there's more to hiring a photographer than who knows what secrets and who knows what techniques. We all have the technical background, we all have, but we each have a different eye, we each have a different personality. Just for instance, I do a lot of charity galas. Who do you want to come to your charity gala?
Right.
Think about the personality that they want interfacing with their most high-end donors.
Yes.
And, I remember doing one of these once, and, I had a group in front of me, and I was just motioning for them to squeeze together to get this picture. And afterwards, one of the gentlemen came up to me, and he said, "Thank you so much for not pushing me." Because I think there's been a photographer in the past that just has kind of manhandled.
Right.
And that might work in some situations, but it doesn't work in others. So everybody's got their space.
That's interesting because, Diane, I was going to say that I've worked with a lot of photographers, and I think the thing that I connected with you the most is the way that you, first of all, put me at ease, but then also I think it's the connection and the, what is the word I want to use? Connection, but then also intuitively knowing kind of how to talk to me to get me to whatever you needed. I didn't feel, I did not even think about this, but I never felt quote unquote manhandled or, that you were telling me what to do. I always felt it was very collaborative. I really had no idea what I was doing. So it was obviously your work, but I hadn't even thought about that. So that's an interesting thing, that it's not just taking a good photograph, but especially when you're working with humans who can have triggers, who can be reactive. I think it's really important to know how to talk with them to get the best for them and for you. So
exactly. And I think especially working with people, first of all, anybody over the age of 12, well, I take that back because teenagers and millennials, they love having their picture taken. But I do a lot in the corporate world and the editorial world, so I'm usually photographing someone for a story or a magazine article or promotional piece or whatever. And the first thing they say to me is, "I hate having my picture taken." Well, that just wrecked everything, didn't it?
Right.
So it's my job to kind of turn that around.
How do you do that? How do you reframe that for them?
First you have to conversation and say, well, everybody does.
Yeah.
So don't feel, just like you telling me today, we're just going to talk. Don't be nervous. We're just talking, right?
That's true, yes.
Right? There's nothing to be nervous about. Right. So you sort of start there.
Right.
And then it's my job, really, I think, to make them look their very best.
Yes.
Okay? Am I going to do some retouching? Am I going to move that blemish? Am I going to get rid of that stray hair? Of course I am, but I let them know I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
However, I want you to look as good as you can now. I don't want to have to Photoshop you and turn you into some plastic, perfect thing that you were not. But if you just breathe and I will make sure that your collar's straight. I'm going to make sure that your tie is straight. If your hair is looking a little this way or that way, I'll say, you know what, go take a look at your hair. I just want you to check your bangs and make sure that they're the way you want them to be. That kind of thing. If we have the opportunity to work with a hairstylist and a makeup artist on set, that's even better.
Sure.
But all those things let them know that I am interested in making them look terrific.
Right.
And that, I think, goes a long way.
So now that we're talking about, we're going into an area I didn't really think to think about for this interview, but I have a question. I'm curious.
Sure.
Is that how do you get the story? So I noticed that in the photographs that you've taken that I've seen, there seems like there's a story in them, and you've mentioned a little bit about catching that right moment. But in that moment, I feel like, at least the ones I've seen, there's one you took of a professional downtown with the lights, and there were people walking by, and I could just see, it just seemed like the story of this guy who just stopped for a second, happened to look over his shoulder, and you took the photo, and I'm sure that's not what took.
No, that's
happened.
never what happens.
But how do you come up with the story, or how do you relay that to the person you're photographing? Because it's a collaboration, I would think.
It's not my story, it's their story.
Okay.
So in the same way that we had a pre-brief interview before this, there's multiple conversations, there's emails. You do your homework beforehand. You know, I'm going to look at your website. I'm going to look up and see if there's any press written about you. If there's a PR firm that's managing this photo shoot, you know, that's requested the photo for whatever. There's always a purpose. Nobody calls me, well, I shouldn't say nobody. It's rare for people to call me and say, you know, it'd be really fun if I had my picture taken and I thought I'd hire a photographer, right? There's usually some purpose. We're promoting something, we're marking some milestone, we're starting a campaign, something.
Right.
So first I find out what that is, and then I try to tell that story. So just for instance, I had an attorney once who had won an award. And the magazine wanted 3 photos of this gentleman because there was going to be an article, and, you know, there was a cover shot, and then there were 2 for the inside. And he was very much a Chicago person. So we wanted to do something in the city. He was a partner in the law firm. So, you know, I knew he would have a big, impressive office, perhaps with a view, but you don't want to do the normal everyday thing.
Right.
And it was really interesting the day he showed up. We were going to shoot out in front of the Chicago Board of Trade with the columns and all. And we went early on a Sunday morning because I had checked this out ahead of time. I didn't know, but I had a feeling that in that little corridor there was going to be a certain time when the light bounced off, you know, and everything would look terrific. And he showed up in this pinstripe suit that was more New York than it was Chicago. But it was very him, right?
Yeah.
And I had a really long lens, so I could compress that whole scene.
Yes.
And I was literally laying on the ground and looking up at him. And because the lens was so long, it wasn't like an up the nostril shot, but it just made him look like this very strong, important Chicago person.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, the rest would have been told in the article. But
that's amazing.
I mean, that's kind of what you do. So it's just the talking of the people and talking with them that we get the ideas, and then once we're in the space, I kind of put it all together.
I love it. Again, you do your preparation.
You have to
do your preparation, and then it comes together. That makes sense.
That's the magic, though.
Yeah. Studying your craft, kind of knowing all the pieces, and then trusting that it will come together. I love that. So. I probably think this has been a fascinating conversation. It's been way too fast. It's been fascinating, and we're getting up close to time. But so I guess we talked a little bit about that moment. Like, I think in life, life many times is about timing. And if you act too quickly, you won't have the opportunity. But if you act too late, you won't take advantage of the opportunity. So, and you were mentioning photography, it's that one moment. It's that.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about that. And for me, I feel like it's a lot about an intuitive, like, there's an intuition there that just tells you, like a small voice that says now. Is that what's your experience?
Yeah. Like I kind of said before, you can sort of see it coming.
Yes.
Whether it's a lighting situation or sometimes you're at an event and you see things just sort of coming together and about to happen kind of thing. And then you just have to get yourself in the spot and wait for it. So, for instance, during COVID, as you can imagine, many of the events were shut down. But I had this one client that, being creative, decided to do a drive-in movie event.
Yes.
Okay, so it was on their property, at their location, their name's on the building. If I stand in the right spot behind them, and they had all their volunteers who they wanted to show were working safely and happy and helping people kind of thing. And a few people were checking cars as they came in, and I noticed that it was just dark enough that people were starting to turn their headlights on. And this one car came through, and the magical moment where the sky is the right color, like it's still bright enough that I can see the logo on the building, and the sky is this pretty color, and it's still light enough that I can see the people, but I've got these headlights. And in my head, I'm just like, if I get a trail of cars, I've got a tripod, I've got it right over there, I can grab it. If I'm right here and I wait for that trail of cars, I can drag the shutter, I can get those lights to move, and it's going to tell the whole story. That there were a bunch of people here, the volunteers helped everyone, the branding of the places in the background, and it's all, that's the shot. That is the shot.
Wow.
It's just there. So it's a little bit of intuition, it's a little bit of patience.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing so honestly and openly about your process, like how you think through things. Like sometimes experts, it's hard for them to describe what they do, but I feel like during this conversation that I can see how you think just because you've been so great at describing it. So thank you.
Thanks.
It's
You're
been
welcome.
so awesome. So we are near the end of our time, but we've been talking to Diane Smutny of DMS Photography. Diane, do you want to tell people how they can reach you if they want some amazing photographs?
Yes, take a look at my website, www.dmsphotography.com.
Yes. Or you can reach out to me and I will definitely connect you to Diane. So Diane, it has been a complete pleasure. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you for having me.
And we will talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
If you are 65 years and older, there's one thing we can all agree on. Your health and well-being is very important. Whether you are a recent green card holder, retiree, or without papers, you are now eligible for Illinois Medicaid Health Insurance Program. Need help to apply? You can contact United African Organization via WhatsApp SMS at 773-420-8976. That is 773-420-8976. All you need is proof of identification, proof of address, and proof of income. This PSA is proudly brought to you in part by United African Organization. You can also visit them at uniteafricans.org.
You're listening to WGHC LP 98.3 FM Chicago. Listen to our live stream at WGHCradio.org and click on the Listen Live tab. If you would like to sponsor our station, please send an email to Program Director at WGHCradio.org. You can also make a donation on our website, WGHCradio.org.
Are you addicted to drugs? Narcotics Anonymous can help. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. We are not interested in what or how much you used, what you have done in the past, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. If you are like us, you know that 1 is too many and 1,000 never enough. Find a new way to live. Visit us at na.org today.
I love this song! I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzz warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Perfect Detours. I'm your host, Bob Kiser. We were just talking to Diane Smutny of DMS Photography. I don't like to brag, but I have like the best job in the world. I love the conversations I get to have each week with our guests. We go into these unexpected territories, and I feel so honored and lucky I get to just sit here and ask questions and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for letting me have a job. I appreciate it. I could just relate to so much of what Diane was talking about. And one thing that she mentioned that I wanted to kind of touch on is this idea of kind of jumping off the cliff. And she mentioned that she worked for the lab, and she also was starting her photography business. And many times when people come to me, I think that they think of quitting what they're doing today and then jumping off into what they're doing tomorrow. Or you'll hear these inspirational speakers saying, I quit my job and then I started this other thing. And sometimes that works, but I just want to kind of put out there that what I've seen from a lot of successful people is this blending of what they're doing now, which may not be their ultimate goal, but is providing safety and support that allows them the freedom to learn about their new job or their new career or whatever it is that they're going to be doing. And I think that is a very important thing for people to hear. I feel sometimes that people put themselves down or think less of themselves because, I'm just doing this job to get by. Well, that we need to live. We need to kind of, we need financial security. We need all of that. So I think there is a power in that place that allows us to jump into the new desired place that we're going to be doing stuff from. So just kind of putting that out there. And I think that I've gone through that, and I heard that in Diane's story. And then you get to a place where then I think you do have to jump, but you jump being prepared and being ready for what comes at you. So the other thing I heard about heard in Diane's story was this idea of keeping going. I think we're always looking for signs when we're doing things like, am I on the right path? Am I doing what I should be doing? Is the universe trying to tell me not to be doing this, or et cetera? And many of my friends who are successful in many careers, I feel like the universe, we have an easy time getting into it. And the universe goes, okay, so just want to make sure this is what you want to be doing, right? And there's like some little hiccups. And that actually provides the fodder, the opportunity for us to grow, to build the skill set, to then have longevity in what we do. So just want to put out there that just because you're hitting some roadblocks or hitting some stumbling blocks, that doesn't mean you're not doing the right thing. That maybe the universe is just providing you a little education, a little opportunity for education. And those moments is when I've grown the most. I love having a lot of success, but in my quote unquote, I don't want to say failures, but in those moments when things didn't go as expected, I have found that I've learned the most. So that was what I took from Diane's interview. And also just saying yes to opportunities, like that's a huge thing. Even if you don't really see the reward per se, sometimes just by saying yes, it'll lead you to the next opportunities. The people who are great stars didn't just get those hit TV shows or, get those, billion-dollar companies, just one day going from nothing to everything. That those little blocks, those little steps that we take to get to where we're going. So just be aware that people say yes, usually keep moving forward. And again, just putting out there that also being aware of when we're saying yes to too many things that then get in the way of us growing. So if that wasn't very concrete for you, I understand it wasn't. But it's kind of going with your gut and listening. Are you making this choice out of fear or out of excitement? Out of a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset? When I'm scared I'm going to lose something or scared I'm not going to get something, that's usually when I make those decisions that maybe are not the best for me, or at least the decisions I need to check with my tribe, which we've talked about before, those people that support us in our journeys. So it has been it's been such a pleasure talking with everybody. Each week we have the show. I'm not here every week. Sometimes we play, reruns. I'm here 2 to 3 Saturdays a month. But every time I'm in the studio, I feel like I leave a changed person, which is pretty cool. If you want more of me, you can find me on Facebook, just under Bob Kiser. In parentheses, my pre-adopted name, which is Bobby Wentz. So people from grade school can find me also, but Bob Kiser on Facebook. If you've been listening on Facebook Live, you already know we're there because you're already on my page. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at Bob Kiser Coach. My website is www.bobkisercoaching.com. Again, bobkisercoaching.com. Any of those places, feel free to send me a message. I love continuing these conversations with listeners. I've had several times where listeners have had an additional thought or something, and we continue the conversation off the air. Love that. Please bring on your thoughts, or if you have an idea for a show, something you want to talk about, please bring that to me too, because I could never have too many good ideas. You've been listening to Perfect Detours on WGHC, LP 98.3 FM Chicago. We are a low-power station empowering small voices to make great change. Please listen on our website at wghcradio.org and make a donation. You can also listen to us live by clicking on the Listen Live tab. If you'd like to sponsor this show or the station in any way, please leave a message for our program director using the Contact Us form. Finally, if you'd like to keep up to date with new programming and news, just sign up for our email list. We'll be happy to tell you. All this you can do just by visiting our website, which is wghcradio.org. Again, this is Bob Kiser. You've been listening to Perfect Detours, and have a great rest of the day.